What's up, fight fans from all around the world? Welcome back to the War Room. I am your fight goddess, Chris Baldwin, and I'm here in the War Room with my sister, Malissa Smith. She is a women's boxing historian, and my boy, Mr. Eddie Goldman. We call him the Conscious of Combat Sports. Folks, we are here talking about this incredible, spectacular fight between Natasha Jonas and Mikaela Mayer in Liverpool, and it was one for the record books. I think you said, Eddie, it was already a contender for fight of the year. So I watched the fight. I was just thrilled from round one until the bell closed in round 10. It was nonstop action. Mikaela Mayer looked strong. Jonas had precision punching that body. And I just love that, every moment of it. So look, I'm going to kick it off to Melissa. Melissa, give us your breakdown of this fight. Tell us what you think, and let's touch on a little bit about the scoring and how Natasha won that fight.
Well, first of all, as you said, this was, the first super fight of 2024. You're talking about two pound for pound fighters agreeing to meet at 147 pounds. Natasha Jonas had only just recently won the IBF title at 147, having already contested at 154 and gotten 3 belts. On the other end of it, Mikaela Mayer had been coming up from fighting at 130. She famously lost to Alicia Baumgardner on that all-women's card at the O2 in 2022. Really upset her apple cart tremendously, especially since she was unable to get a rematch against Alicia Baumgardner. She went back to the drawing board and decided it was time to start to go up in weight. She contested at 132. She then contested at 140 and has now landed on 147. Some of it's strategic in that you've got Katie Taylor at 132, having been undisputed. She's been fighting Chantel Cameron at 140. They're split 1-1 on those fights. Taylor still has a couple of belts at 132. She's given up 2 already. She's undisputed at 140. Makes it really hard for Mikaela, even though she is in that class of elite fighter, to contest at 140, because they still haven't finished with what looks like will be a trilogy. So Mikaela Mayer said, okay, I'll jump to 147. I walk around in the 150s, low 160s anyway, and I'm getting too old at 33 to drop 35 pounds to try to starve myself to fight at 130 or even 132. So it made a lot of sense. Plus, it was for a title. And Mikaela Mayer had a lot of interest in becoming a two-weight champion, just as Tasha Jonas is now a two-weight champion, having won belts at 154. And out of that amazing campaign in 2022, winning the Fighter of the Year, first time a woman won Fighter of the Year by the BBBFC in the United Kingdom last year. So she really had a sensational year. So for her to then drop down to 147, she won the belt fighting Candy Wyatt. She's been real honest, saying, that was a good fight, but I wasn't going to lose it. But in Mikaela Mayer, she was going to fight a tough girl, a tough woman who was going to be every bit as tough as Katie Taylor was, in the sense of the kind of pedigree that Mikaela Mayer brought to this fight, because she is an Olympian in the same way that Tasha Jonas is an Olympian. And they started at around the same time. And Tasha Jonas was the first woman in Britain to win a place in the Olympics for 2012 in London. Mikaela Mayer missed, but she then represented the United States in 2016. So all the elements were there for a super fight, and that is exactly what they delivered. Tasha Jonas is a really tough lefty. She's a southpaw, but she doesn't fight like an ordinary southpaw. She will reverse direction. She'll go to her right and her left.
I heard what's the commentator there? He kept saying that. Oh, she's She's not moving to the right. She's moving to the left.
Timothy Bradley. If you
Timothy
were watching
Bradley.
ESM,
Yeah,
it was Timothy Bradley.
He had me cracking up. He was on it. I was feeling his
He was
energy.
really on it. I got to say, in terms of the coverage, I know Eddie will talk about what Sky Sports were saying. We watched it on ESPN. Timothy Bradley was losing his mind by the later rounds. He was practically in tears going, oh my God, I can't believe what they're doing. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you have Mikaela Mayer, who fights tall. She's 5'9". Why wouldn't she fight tall? She is not great on feinting or anything else, but she's got power, and even though in her first round against Natasha Jonas, she was missing, she wasn't going in close enough to be able to really land on Tasha. And Tasha had a really fast start and was executing an incredible game plan and going to the body right from the first round, and had some beautiful, beautiful shots. So she definitely caught the momentum in that first round. But Mikaela Mayer came back strong in the second, and she was tagging her. And even though she continued to fight tall, she was able to make up the distance. She was able to execute on the tighter clinches, and was able to counter Tasha Jonas's strong countering. And whereas Tasha kept going to the body, Mikaela Mayer also made it to the body. She was faking her out with right-hand leads that were tagging Jonas and getting in some swift lefts. So it was a really tight, tough, well-executed game plan that both of these women had, and it was very close.
So
good.
Course,
it was fought at 2 minutes, and they fought from end to end. I did not see the punch count, but I am sure it was in at least the 50s, 60s, maybe even 70 punches per round, with a lot of touches that actually made it through. What was interesting is that Mikaela Mayer, who is usually not known for making a lot of adjustments, was able to make adjustments as the fight wore on.
In what way?
She was able to adjust to the changes in direction that Tasha Jonas was making. Mm-hmm. And she was able to find the holes. She was able to find the shots in between. And she was continuously aggressive. She did not let up on her aggression.
I know, I saw that.
She really pushed the fight. She pushed the speed of the fight. And she had Tasha Jonas on the back foot. And it's not that she can't handle the back foot. She can. But she was able to corner her and had a lot of ring generalship throughout, and able to corner her, able to get her to the ropes. And whereas you did see Tasha Jonas be able to execute these beautiful quick turnarounds, she still got her there and got in some licks. And by the middle rounds, Tasha Jonas's face was starting to show, wow, I'm in a fight now. To me, by the middle rounds, Mikaela Mayer was gaining the momentum. Not only that, but she had, to me, the clearer shots. I'm not saying that Tasha Jonas didn't have clear shots. Right. She did. She just had higher volume and execution, to me, to my eyes, watching that fight.
Right.
So that having been said, it was a very active fight throughout. They were continuously in motion. They never stopped. Non-stop. By the 9th and 10th rounds, though, you really did start to see Mikaela Mayer, at least, again, to my eyes, pull out. Tasha Jonas was tired, and she was still getting cornered. She was still getting pushed back, and it's like Mikaela Mayer just had another gear. She was like, I am going to win. I am in this to win. And in particular, in the 10th, she just brought it. She brought it huge and large. And it's not that it was a 10-8, it was definitely a 10-9, but it was so clear that she had powered through that fight in a way that Jonas had not. Now, scoring was 96-94 for Jonas, 97-93 for Mayer, and 96-95 for Jonas, which meant that 10-10 round, and I'm sorry, there were no 10-10 rounds. So, I mean, that's just chicken shit. Why the discrepancy? Well, again, you had a lot of activity. So you could have seen the 96-94 for Jonas potentially, in that they were very close rounds. And depending upon how you were looking at it, what you were seeing, you could potentially have seen it that way. Again,
So you think
Natasha did a lot of countering. She had a lot of effective body work, and she had some beautiful hooks. I mean, she was executing some beautiful shots. I saw it Mikaela's way 96-94, but it's not to me a robbery to say that she lost. I saw it that way, but I can understand how Jonas may have been given the edge in a couple of rounds that were close because she was executing, and depending upon how someone was seeing it and what they were seeing and what angle they were seeing, I could see that. I did not see that there was a 10-10 round. It could have gone to a draw. I could have seen that. I didn't necessarily see 97-93, although I know someone who was at ringside scored it that way.
97-93?
Watching for Mayor, saw it live, scored it 97-93 for Mayor live at ringside.
Wow.
So most people had it 96-94 Mayor. And I've got to say the ESPN crew were leaning towards Mayor taking it again, because she just had that momentum in those last 3 rounds that just to them solidified having won it. And the other thing is, clearly Jonas had the first round, but you can really make a strong argument for Mikaela in the second. It's not like she gave away the first 3 rounds in the way that she did with Baumgartner. She did not give away the first 3 rounds. She definitely, it was 2-1 for me. And then Mikaela pretty much ran away with it from the middle rounds on. So I can see how it could have gone the other way to 96-94. I don't consider it a robbery. I could have seen why certain people may have scored at 95-95. Again, you're in Liverpool, which is
exactly
her hometown. She's the champion.
She didn't get knocked out.
She didn't get knocked. Nobody got knocked out. Nobody had a knockdown. There was some wobbles, but there were no knockdowns. Nothing clearly like that. It was just extraordinary high-level technical boxing throughout. It was a technical, brilliant, high-volume fight.
Beautiful boxing.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful boxing by 2 high-level elite top 10 fighters.
Absolutely.
No question in the world. And the bravery to take that fight for both of them has to be applauded. For Mayer, who's had nowhere to go, taking that risk, coming to Jonas's backyard, even giving her the rematch. And for Jonas, hey, she has said, this is probably my last year. Taking the risk of Mayer, not going the easy way, but taking the risk of Mayer, who she knew would be a really, really, really tough opponent, because she knows just how good Mayer is.
Right.
She's seen her up close. Mayer's fought 4 times in the UK. So, even though she's the B-side, she's in the red corner here. She's known by the fans, and she's certainly known by the fighters. They've all seen her. They know who she is as a boxer.
Absolutely.
So I was incredibly impressed. It was a great way to start the year in boxing, which has a lot of other issues, and we have some great boxing to come. We've got the undisputed fight that's going to happen sometime in March between Sinisha Estrada and Yokasta Vale to solidify undisputed at 108 at the world minimum weight, which will be extraordinary. We even have a great fight coming up this weekend that'll be on DAZN as part of Golden Boy Promotions. We've got Gabriela Fondella, who's this young phenom who won at IBF at 112, who's fighting the old amazing warrior, Christina Cruz, who I call a boxer's boxer, who was in the amateurs and had national titles for years, has the most Golden Glove wins of any male or female in the world. And she will be fighting for the IBF flyweight title this weekend. So there's really great boxing to come. And what this fight between Mayer and Jonas shows us, demonstrates to us, is just how great women are in this sport, how they absolutely deserve to be the main event,
Absolutely.
and how this fight at 10-2 opens up, whether it's 12-3 or 10-3 or 12-2, it opens up this question again. When you're fighting that close to the margins, is this the product you want, or do you want to expand the performance opportunities? So it's definitely part of that conversation. But as Natasha Jonas said it, and it's absolutely the case, you got to come with the cash.
Right. Exactly.
If you're going from 20 minutes
Show
to
me the
36, show these ladies the money. Their lives
right.
are on the line.
Exactly. Eddie, we are going to pass it off to you. Give us your analysis, sir. You know, you wrote your piece on Patreon, Natasha Jonas, Miss GB. That's for Miss Great Britain, right? Triumphs at home.
That's her nickname. That's why I use that.
Okay, right on. Go ahead and give us your breakdown, brother.
There are many aspects I talk about in the piece and also talk about here. The first thing is that the high technical level of this fight once again shows the advancement and development of women's boxing. We've seen some top level women's fights here or there. I'm not going to enumerate them, that are less than stellar technique, wouldn't make your training tape, but this one would. And with Cameron and Taylor, with the two fights that they've had with Amanda Serrano, with so many others now, you're starting to see a quality in women's boxing that's at least equaling that of the top level of men's boxing, which hasn't caught up business wise, marketing wise, but technique wise, with now being several years in the Olympics, with growing amateur programs around the world, is now starting to peak and reach that level, and you're seeing the results of it. Here you had two Olympians in this fight, in Natasha Jonas and Mikaela Mayer. Excuse me, I'm getting over a nasty cold here. Now, in terms of the controversy over the scoring, I think more than anything, this shows the inadequacy of the scoring system that we have, particularly for fights in the women's division that are 2-minute rounds. Because if you leave out the people that were just haters and biased and don't know what the hell they're talking about, the people that know boxing were all over the place in the scoring on this fight. I'm not so much talking about the judges. I'm talking about media people and educated fans and fighters. I watched the fight and I scored it even at 95 apiece. Then I looked at another scorecard that also had it 95 apiece. I said, oh, I guess they agree with me. They agreed on the outcome, but there were several rounds that we had scored differently. And there was some media people. I think Tim Bradley scored at 96-94 for Jonas, as did Dan Raphael. And then there were other people that scored it even, and other people that scored it for Mayer. And the fact is, many of these rounds were extremely close. And what would happen over 2 minutes, somebody would have a quick start in the first 30 seconds, a minute. Now you first minute, you're already halfway through the round. Then the other fighter might pick it up. So you have to balance who won that round. And often people give more credit to the way the round ends rather than who was winning it at the beginning in terms of balancing all that out. And the other thing was that with the fighters at such a high skill level as this, they need some time to get their offense going, because they're not just going to go in and bowl over their opponent. That's not the level of fighters here. You have two high quality top 10 pound for pound fighters in there. So it takes time to develop. And just as you're developing, just as your offense is going, bing, the bell rings and it's over. And I think that accounts for the discrepancy in terms of the judges. I felt that 97, 93 for Mayer was way out in left field. I agree with Melissa, the 96, 95, meaning that the judge scored one of the rounds 10-10 is something that's really discouraged by athletic commissions. But if you're going to score 10-10, there might have been several rounds in there. If you're going to add this legitimate score, there was several rounds that were pick'em rounds. There were other rounds that were not, that clearly one fighter or another won those rounds. On the other hand, with Jonas, I agree with Jonas that she was overall landing the harder shots. Mayer doesn't have the greatest history of power. She only has 5 knockouts among her 19 wins. And Jonas has a higher knockout percentage, and I think was landing a lot of very good body shots. It was good to see the technique of the body shots in there. It's hard, very hard to judge that, and I think that might have been a factor in the judges giving the fight to Jonas. I think that it's very unlikely that there's going to be a rematch with Jonas. Jonas is 39. She has an 8-year-old daughter. She turns 40 in June. She's the first black woman in the UK to get a manager's license from the British Boxing Board of Control. She wants to wrap up her career with some signature fights, and I don't think it's going to be a rematch with Mayer. I think that she's aiming for Jessica McCaskill, because she says she does it because she wants to get a WBA belt, which she never had before. But I think she also views McCaskill after her last fight with Sandy Ryan, which that was a fight that many people believe was a robbery that didn't go to Ryan. I think she views McCaskill as being vulnerable, and she could start to unify a couple of these welterweight belts and retire on top. But there's another aspect to this that I almost missed, because I said was sick for a couple of weeks and I fell behind and just writing and doing a lot of stuff just to get better, to deal with it. There was very little publicity outside the UK and really outside the north of England about who Natasha Jonas is. And that's because the US broadcast of this was ESPN Plus, which is because of Top Rank, which has a contract with Mayer. So the push was on Mayer. In the UK, this was on, and Ireland, this is on Sky Sports, which has the deal with the boxer promotion with the promoter Ben Shalom. But their budget is much smaller than when Sky had Matchroom on. So they don't have the marketing and promotional budget, and they really, outside of the UK, they don't have much presence. Boxer doesn't have much presence in the US, and I don't think they've had too many fighters, of any fighters at all. They might have had a couple on these big money Saudi Arabian shows. So here you have Natasha Jonas, and I think maybe it's the number 3 promotion in the UK behind Matchroom and Queensberry, even though they have a number of top level fighters signed to them. So there just wasn't there hasn't been as much international recognition of who Natasha Jonas is, of what her story is, why she has this nickname, Miss GB. This is not from any beauty pageant or anything like that. This is from, Melissa touched on some of her history, the first British woman to really licensed by the BBOC to fight in the amateur ranks. That was Natasha Jonas, the first British woman to fight in the Olympic Games. The first black woman, as I said, to get this manager's license. Now as she starts to wrap up her fighting career. And in Liverpool, a city which is known to honor, they used to have a singing group from there, I forget their name, but to honor a lot of people that have come from there, she's like a hero in that region. And I posted, and a lot of other people did since it was made available, this video of this giant mural that was made of Natasha Jonas, which she liked because she said it looked like her, which is difficult to do, in the Toxteth section of Liverpool. And I'm not particularly an expert, far from it, on the geography of the UK, but look up Toxteth. It's an area. They put the mural just a couple blocks from her childhood home, where she ran around. She played football as a youth, where she played in the streets, and she still lives in Liverpool. It's an area where a lot of immigrants live, a lot of people of color live. I think it usually votes Labor. It's a working class area, and she's viewed as just a star from that area and in much of the UK. But because of all these different factors that I've talked about, she doesn't get the huge money, the huge paydays. And what I advocated in the article, and I'll advocate now to the people in Saudi Arabia and Turkey al-Sheikh, and the people that make the decisions there, women's boxing is growing. In fact, even Al Mitchell, the trainer from Mikaela, took it a step further and said men's boxing in the U.S. is dying while women's boxing is growing. Might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much. Women's boxing is growing all over in the UK, in the United States, and while boxing is growing in Saudi Arabia and the MENA region, they have not, since Turkey al-Sheikh took over running the boxing events, had a women's fight. The only women's fight they had on the pro level was Ramla Ali getting a first-round knockout in August 2022. Now, in the amateur level, they have a women's program. The Saudi Arabian Boxing Federation has run tournaments for women and girls and running training sessions. That's going on. In other sports, they've had women competing. They had close to 50% female participation in the World Combat Games a couple of months ago that had all these different combat sports and martial arts. And now that Saudi Arabia has invested in the PFL, the MMA group, which is arguably the number 2 promotion. I don't really follow it that closely anymore, so I could be wrong. But they're one of the MMA promotions that's out there that recently bought Bellator. They're having a big show in Saudi Arabia, the PFL champions against the Bellator champions, and having some other undercard fights. And on the undercard are women's MMA fights, including one with an MMA fighter who has a record of 1 win and 1 loss, who also happens to be the top undisputed boxing middleweight champion of the world and 2-time Olympic gold medalist, Claressa Shields. So Claressa Shields can, and that's in Saudi Arabia, Claressa Shields can fight in MMA, which is obviously not her first sport, in Saudi Arabia, which is cool. We know she's pursuing that. But she can't fight in boxing, where she's tops in really the 2 or 3 weight classes at the same time. So I think that if they want to, now Claressa, it looks like for a while, I don't know how long she's going to spend time this year in the MMA. But they're trying to fill out these cards for this year in Saudi Arabia. It may be too soon since Natasha Jonas just fought on January 20th to put her on the February or March card, especially after a pretty grueling fight. But they're planning a card in June, which might they hope to have a better Biev against Bivol. They're going to have other cards in the fall if there's a rematch between Fury and Usyk, assuming that comes on. Joshua presumably will beat Ngannou in March, so he's going to be fighting again, and presumably later this year also when they start Riyadh season again in the fall, they're going to be having, it seems that they want to be having more fights. Put women's fights on these cards and let the women get these big financial opportunities. And if you want to get somebody that already has a Saudi connection, that's Natasha Jonas, because her trainer, the noted British trainer Joe Gallagher, is also managing the Mike Tyson Boxing Club, which they opened recently in Riyadh, which is to train youths, obviously, in boxing. So he posted on it was posted on social media a picture of the two of them, Joe Gallagher and Turki Al-Sheikh, together, because Turki was the guy that hired him. So I think it would be very important for everybody to get Natasha Jonas later this year, before she hangs up her gloves, on one of these cards. And she seems to want to fight top level fighters like Jessica McCaskill or somebody else. Put that where the money is, because to show you also where the money is, Boxer is on Sky Sports, as I said, with a really slashed budget from what Sky paid out for the rights for Matchroom. They have a deal to show their cards in the U.S. on Peacock, the Comcast NBC Universal streaming service. However, since Mayer is contracted to ESPN, this show in the U.S. was on ESPN Plus and not on Peacock, which is going to be showing the Olympics and got a huge amount of people watching an NFL playoff game recently. I think that set streaming records. So which would have gotten more attention for this fight? I really don't know. But they got bumped off because this was the publicity and everything around this in the U.S. was about Mayer, and taking nothing away from Mayer, it just really didn't do justice to Natasha Jonas. To me, she's a star in boxing. She should be recognized as such. She's one of the top fighters. She's already considered a top 10 pound for pound fighter. And the love of the people in the community in Toxteth, Liverpool, for her is just incredible. And so I think we should really celebrate her. And back to the scoring, I have no problem with 96-94 either way, or 95-95. I think the problem again is in the scoring. If you look, to me, if you look at the overall round by round, I scored it even. But if you look at the overall fight, which is done, by the way, in a couple of MMA promotions, I think the one who won the overall fight was Natasha Jonas, although it was very close if you had to score the fight as a whole. But until you have at least 10 3-minute rounds, you're going to have problems like this in the scoring, where honest, reasonable people are all over the place in this. So that's my view. Enjoy Natasha Jonas. It's the end of her career, but learn about her. Even though she's not getting the publicity in the United States or outside of part of the UK, learn about her, and hopefully we can get her on this show sometime.
Right, exactly. Well, now, Do you guys want to cover anything else before we wrap up today?
No, I'm just going to put in another plug to watch the Golden Boy on DAZN this Saturday night, January 27th, to catch a really super IFB, a really super, a flyweight battle that'll be really high level women's elite boxing between Christina Cruz, who's the challenger, against Gabriela Fandela, who's a phenom, very young boxer, but has shown extraordinary skills and has a real future in front of her, and the opportunity to eventually become an undisputed champion over time, if the trajectory of her career continues. But really worth watching this fight, and look out for some other really sensational women's boxing coming up. Amanda Serrano will be defending her featherweight with 12x3 coming up, and you've got again at the
When is that
minimum
fight?
weight.
When is
That
that
is,
fight?
I think, in March. I don't have the exact weight. They had a conference over the weekend, but it kind of got lost in all the commentary. Excuse me.
Right.
I'm also getting
Right.
old.
Everybody's been sick this year.
Everybody's
That's
been sick.
okay.
The whole goddamn world
And,
is sick these days.
We're all been
Okay.
sick. It's just been crazy.
Right.
But anyway, it kind of got lost in all the Jonas, Mikaela Mayer, and rightfully so, because they really did have an extraordinary fight. Anybody who has ESPN Plus, watch the fight. It's really worth seeing this bout, because
Yeah.
it'll give you a whole other level of dimension on excellence in boxing, period, never mind women's boxing.
Exactly.
So really highly recommended.
Right on. You want to wrap it up with where people can find you?
Sure. I am girlboxing.org for my website. My last piece was for MLK Day. I promise I'm going to update that soon with another piece. And on social media, I'm at Girlboxing Now. I got to tell you, I'm kind of a little bit lost. I'm not getting the traction I used to have on Twitter at all, and Threads seems to be going nowhere. It's a little bit sad, because I'm losing community, if you will, and I'm finding it kind of hard, but I'm still hanging in there. I'm on
Keep
LinkedIn
hanging.
under my name, Melissa Smith. You can
Right.
find me there. I'm putting out a lot of boxing content there, and there's some nice high level conversations going on the sport. And other than that, I have my new book coming out in June.
Yeah.
I have a publication date of June 4th. It's called The Promise of Women's Boxing. It's an in-depth look at the sport from the day after the Olympics to now, and tackling some of the issues that we talk about on our show, issue of 2 and 3 minute rounds, pay
Right.
issues, opportunity for promotion, and everything else across the board. So we'll talk more about it, and I'm just very excited to have this new book coming out.
So proud of you. Congratulations. Right on. All right, Eddie, tell the people where they can find you, brother.
You know, one advantage, if you can call it that, or at least side effect of being sick, is when you slow down, you start to cut shit out that is less important and realize what's important, what's not important.
Exactly.
So on social media, I've been sticking to Twitter at this point, although it just gets dumber and dumber. People putting up stories without any attribution and getting pissed off, even if you agree with them. And somebody will say, well, what's the source? And they go, what, you don't believe me? You know, stupid shit. And I'm still there. I've stopped for the moment posting on these other sites like Blue Sky, because it was just a big waste of time, and for technical reasons doing links and all that are just much more time consuming, and again, a big waste of time. I am posting on LinkedIn, but honestly, the quality of the discussion that I've seen on LinkedIn, which is supposed to be these professionals, is not a whole lot better than it is on Twitter, because even you have a lot of people posting about things about the development of Saudi Arabia and sports and the significance of that and different viewpoints. And I'll sometimes throw in something about boxing, And it's like these people don't care about boxing. They not only don't know shit about boxing, but they don't care about it. Yet the Saudis care about it. It was the feature, the beginning of their Riyadh season, their big events, and they're spending lavishly on these big fights that we know in boxing. Some are worthy, like Fury versus Usyk, and some are more spectacle, like Fury versus Ngannou, and in between. It's been, as I said in the past, a mixed bag with the having. But if you want to have that discussion, you're not going to have it on LinkedIn. And so it's just the general deterioration of so much that's gone on in the boxing media. You have the general media collapsing overall. The latest victim is Sports Illustrated, which is looks like it's pretty much dead in the water with these venture capitalists or whatever the hell they're called, people coming in and just gutting it and ruining it, and scandals having AI articles for Sports Illustrated. None of what I write is written by AI. It's written by me. So if there's a mistake, it's not from a bot. It's because I made a typo or something, or another type of mistake or whatever. So that's why I have the Patreon page, because there you see all people that are experienced in boxing journalism, one by one, they're doing their own thing because there's no place left to go.
That's a
And
shame.
there are promoters and networks, and there's talk that the Saudis want to develop their own media site. There are all these things that won't be independent, won't be real journalism, and that really hurts the sport. And the other aspect, of course, is the growth of gambling. So people are looking at these things just as a commodity, just to make money off of a fight, rather than to look at it for its own value as a sporting event. So those are some of the reasons why I'm independent on my own at Patreon. It's patreon.com/Eddie Goldman. Subscribe to that. You're going to get my own independent views. And if you agree or disagree, cool, just make a case. But we have to do this because the state of boxing requires it and the state of media requires it. But it's kind of a race to the bottom at this point. And as for social media, I haven't seen anything good developing out of it. I'm more and more thinking we're coming to an end of this social media era unless something changes rapidly. But I'm still on Twitter, still at eddiegoldman.com, and still at NHB News on Twitter. And you could look up some of my LinkedIn stuff as well, and still in the Big Apple.
That's right. The Big Apple. We love the Big Apple. Though I'm no longer in the Big Apple. I'm on the West Coast, and coming to you guys from Los Angeles. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I am your fight goddess. You guys can catch me. I'm no longer even giving out my Twitter handle because I'm on Threads at Fight Goddess One. I'm on Instagram at Fight Goddess One. And that's where you catch me, because all that stuff on Twitter, I cannot even keep up anymore. It is just a bash, I don't know, a MAGA mess, if you will. But this is independent journalism. Support our independent journalists like Malissa and Eddie. I am a fight fan. I love their input. I love their analysis. They help me understand the corrupt sport of boxing. And I hope that they can do that for you too. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next, peace, love, and push-ups. Boom.